Today we're going to talk about the #1 most dangerous fat in the world. And then I'm also going to tell you some of the healthiest fats in the world as well. So we're going to go through a whole list, but I need to give you a little foundational information before we get to that. I'm going to make it super simple so you don't have to know chemistry or physics, okay? So what you need to know is that oxygen is super hungry for electrons. And when we get into fats, there's a lot of different types of fats. You have saturated fats. What's unique about saturated fats is they're very stable, and they don't really react very much with oxygen because they don't have any double bonds. And that's as deep as I'm going to get. When you have double bonds, you have something that's more unstable. Oxygen is going to go after things that have more double bonds, and you're going to have more oxidation. Then we get into these fats called unsaturated fats. And all I want you to know about unsaturated fats is there's different numbers of these double bonds. You have monounsaturated fats, and mono means one. It only has one double bond. Polyunsaturated, many double bonds. So the polyunsaturates are going to be more unstable because they have more double bonds, and they're going to react with oxygen more than monounsaturated fats. And this is why if we just do a quick comparison with mono and poly, we're dealing with mainly two fats, avocado oil and olive oil, and 75% of that fat is monounsaturated. So it only has like one double bond, so those are definitely more stable. They're not as stable as saturated fats, but they're a lot more stable than these polyunsaturated, which have a lot of these double bonds, and that would be like corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, soy oil, canola oil, cottonseed oil. Then let's talk about hydrogenated. In a lab, they can actually turn unsaturated fat into a saturated fat. And so when you see hydrogenated oils like margarine, you're dealing with something that's synthetically made. If you just take a look at these fats as being a wall in your house, saturated fats would be all these solid bricks that really support the whole house. But then we have a monounsaturated wall, which has like one brick that's kind of weak. So mostly it's supportive, but certain areas of that wall are maybe slightly fragile. But then we have a wall that is polyunsaturated. There's a lot of bricks in there that are very fragile, and that wall is vulnerable to oxygen, basically. And then if we have a hydrogenated wall, we're dealing with trans bricks, which are these weird bent bricks vulnerable to falling apart, and this would be the worst wall. Well, they've been phasing out these partially hydrogenated fats. I think they still have a lot of hydrogenated fats, which I think are equally as damaging in junk food and other foods. And then when we get into saturated fats, we're talking about like butter, lard, pig fat, or tallow, which is beef fat. Okay, those are pretty stable fats. At room temperature, they turn into a solid. And then when we get to the monounsaturated, we're talking about mainly avocado oil and then olive oil. But at this level in the presentation, all you need to know is that if you consume cold press avocado oil or cold press olive oil, super healthy and beneficial. But when you start refining them, you get more problems. And when we get to the polyunsaturated, we're getting to an oil that's very unstable, and there's many areas to attack. The big problem with fats right here is when you heat them. Most of these oils that you buy at the store are already heated when you buy them, okay? And then we take them home and then we heat them again. You make them even more dangerous to the body. And also light too tends to break them down and turn into this other byproduct. I'm going to give you this name now. It's called an aldehyde that destroy your DNA, but mainly they lodge into the membranes around your cells. And even if we took the receptor for insulin, which is on the outside of this membrane, and we expose it to aldehydes, we start to destroy that receptor. And this is one of the deeper root causes of insulin resistance, prediabetes, and diabetes, which is so common nowadays simply because 25% of all of our calories are these oils, not in a cold press, unrefined way, but in an industrial refining way, physical grinding, bleaching chemicals, and then a deodorizer to put them in a bottle so then they can stay on the shelf without even being refrigerated. So you're dealing with something that has a lot of these aldehydes that can literally lodge into our bodies in a massive way and stay in there for a long period of time and create inflammation. So they're going to start to destroy the DNA, the membranes, the receptors, which are proteins around this cell. They're going to create inflammation, chronic inflammation. They're going to make the cells stiff and fragile. The oils that they're frying the food in, they keep reusing that oil over and over and over. There is no regulation for the number of times you can use an oil. So it's really up to whoever owns that store. Where you're eating food that has been bathed in this oil, which are super inflammatory for your cells. And we eat this without even thinking twice, mainly because people don't even know what's going on here, and they accumulate in the body. But there's another type of unsaturated fat in this category, and that would be fish oil and cod liver oil. There's some really unique differences. First of all, they both have omega-3 fatty acids, but the ratios of omega-3 fatty acids, and I'm talking about DHA to EPA in cod liver oil, match your brain, retina, your mitochondria, and your immune system. Much closer than fish oils. And cod liver oil retains many additional antioxidants. So cod liver oil has many additional benefits over fish oil. So before I get into the most dangerous oil in the world, I want to just talk a little bit about what's been inverted or flipped in our food supply. Saturated fats. Saturated fats were at one time, very recently, thought to be very, very dangerous. They're going to clog your artery. You should stay away from saturated fats. And now there's more evidence that saturated fats are okay to eat. But for years, decades, saturated fats have been villainized. And the unsaturated fats have been recommended as something to improve your health. When in fact, the truth is, they've always been at the root cause of heart disease. So these unsaturated fats were at one time praised to be the hero to save us of all the health problems. These are really the bad guys, and they always were. I mean, then what about cholesterol, right? I mean, any food that has cholesterol like eggs was once considered to be bad. But then we all of a sudden find out that, wow, eggs actually increase the good cholesterol and decrease the LDL, the bad cholesterol. What an interesting inversion on that. And what about the healthy grains, right? Even still to this day, on a box of cereal, it'll say heart healthy grains, when in fact we know most of the grains sold are refined, turned into sugar. Grains have gluten, which destroys the gut. And then what about red meat, right? That's been demonized as even causing cancer because they lump the red meat into the processed meat as it's one thing, and they both basically cause cancer. When in truth, when you have the carnivore diet, so many people are being healed of many of their diseases, with autoimmune diseases, with gut inflammation diseases. We're talking about one of the most healing foods on the planet, yet at one time it was demonized as a bad thing. What about salt, right? I mean, most people know that too much salt is bad for your blood pressure, but did you know that 90% of high blood pressure has an unknown cause that's not related to salt? Interesting. I think it's a potassium deficiency or a vitamin D deficiency, because even salt-sensitive people that really react with too much salt, when you increase the potassium, they do just fine. In fact, when you start cutting down the salt on someone, their cortisol goes up. From my viewpoint, salt has never been the villain, even with blood pressure. Now let's get into the most dangerous fat in the entire world. All right, the absolute worst fat in the world for your body is the partially hydrogenated fats. This is a unsaturated fat, very unstable, that's been converted into a saturated fat. Chemically, synthetically, it's not healthy. This is a trans fat, which is a weird fat that does all sorts of bad things in our body. But then you get into the question of what about hydrogenated fat? It's super processed, and it comes from an unsaturated fat with really high heats, with a hydrogen gas and a metal. So these two right here, you need to stay away from, and these two are the worst. This one right here, I'm going to tell you right now, these polyunsaturated fatty acids used for frying in a fast food restaurant, hands down, the worst fat in the entire world, because you are accumulating so many aldehydes every time you fry that. They get in the body and they lodge into our membranes, and it takes 600 days to get them out. Number 4, soy oil. Most people that I know never even heard of cold press soy oil. It's usually refined, and it's sold already as heated, and people then heat it again. So you're getting a product that is genetically modified. It probably has traces of glyphosate, and then corn oil is in the same boat, also genetically modified. And then number 6, sunflower oil and safflower oil. Now I know they positioned those two oils as being heart healthy, but not the refined version. Cottonseed oil is like a byproduct of the cotton industry. It's in the same boat as these other ones right here. It's GMO, so it has glyphosate, and so is canola. That's also genetically modified. Rapeseed oil is very high in the polyunsaturated fats. It's usually always refined. Same thing with rice bran oil. Same thing with refined peanut oil. But then we get into refined avocado oil. And so when people buy avocado oil, they're thinking, wow, this is much healthier. But when they heat it, they literally are creating aldehydes because they're wiping out the chlorophyll and the vitamin E and anything in there that's a phytonutrient. And one thing that's really interesting about the avocado oil industry, it's not very regulated. They put other oils in there that are almost impossible to detect. Even the mayonnaise that you get that says avocado oil, you have to read the back of the label. It will never say cold pressed, okay? So you're getting the refined version. Then you get refined olive oil, right? I would stay away from that too because, again, they're heating it, destroying all these wonderful phytonutrients that are there to protect it. So I'm going to take all these as being kind of bad, and then now we're going to get into levels of good or bad, okay? Like lard, for example, there's conventional, but then there's also pasture-raised, okay, which is a lot better. Really depends on the quality or the type of lard you're getting, but conventional, well, they're going to feed tons of grains to that pig. So you're getting more grains, omega-6, and more of these, they put seed oils in there as well. Tallow, that's beef fat, conventional, same thing, grain-fed, right? But if you do grass-fed tallow, that's much healthier. Coconut oil, you have refined coconut oil, you have virgin coconut oil, cold press, so that's much better than refined coconut oil. You have conventional butter and grass-fed butter. So there's different levels of quality. Then cold pressed avocado oil. This also is super healthy, 75% monounsaturated fats. It's very unlikely you're going to get hardly any aldehydes. It has lutein, which is good for the eye and the brain and the prostate. It's loaded with vitamin E. And so this might be a really good salad dressing. You just don't want to heat it. And then we get to cold press extra virgin olive oil. You're dealing with a lot of phytonutrients that have a lot of benefits for your heart, for your tissues, for your brain. Both of these right here have two really powerful phytonutrients that will help lower your inflammation. These don't. Now, I know people are going to ask me, well, what am I going to use to fry food in? The problem with using high heats, it tends to create problems with anything that you're cooking with it. Now you know the world's worst fat. The next video that's probably even more important is the world's worst carbohydrate. And we're not even talking about sugar. And I put that in this video right here. Check it out.